I want to talk about the OceanGate Titan. For the 12 or so of you that don't know, I'm talking about this guy trying to take a handful of billionaires down to see the Titanic and then getting crushed like the beer can on the forehead of some frat douchebag at a Sigma Chi rush party. Okay? We caught up? Awesome. See, the whole incident from beginning to end is just seeped in an unimaginable amount of privilege. Each billionaire paid $250,000 for a seat on that submersible. There were no seats. In fact, they had to take their shoes off. And there was, I think, 5 available seats. These people paid roughly $1.25 million for the possible, not even guaranteed, possible chance of seeing a sunken wreckage underneath the water through a glass hole the size of a CD-ROM, for those of you who remember CD-ROMs. By the way, this submersible was a cigar tube the size of a minivan, the crew compartment of which was made of a composite carbon fiber material that the entire submersible community was saying was not safe at those depths. After just a few trips, it was going to fail. Not could, not might, was going to. All right, OceanGate was warned about this time and time again. And you know what their CEO said? Do you know what this guy said? I will not allow these naysayers to get in the way of innovation. Innovation in this sense means trying to do something incredibly dangerous as cheaply as possible, cutting every corner imaginable, which, come to think of it, is pretty much the American way. So these billionaires and one reluctant 19-year-old kid, who quite frankly is the only person I feel bad about in this whole situation, got on board this rinky-dink little sub that had less structural integrity than a third-grade science fair project to go down and see a ship that has been photographed over and over again for the past 30-plus years. Like, we've seen the Titanic. It's been seen. They got on this craft, throwing caution to the wind, despite the fact that it's been warned time and time again that it was going to fail. Like, you tell me how that is not an example of just extreme privilege. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but they basically had the mentality of, I'm rich, I can't die. And speaking of death, the way these people died is quite possibly the most privileged form of death imaginable. Bear with me here. OceanGate Titan was crushed under more than 6,000 psi of oceanic pressure. At that depth, at that pressure, the crush occurred about 100 times faster than that. These people experienced what is known as an eventless death, okay? The movie screen was running, playing the film, and then all of a sudden it just went black. Not only did they not suffer, they had no idea that anything happened. It was just over like that. This implosion occurred so quickly that if by some miracle of science you were able to witness it happening in real time, your eye would not be able to register the change. It would just be a shape and then suddenly nothing. You wouldn't be able to see the cavitations or nothing. You would have to have filmed it with a high-speed camera and play it back at 100 or even 1,000 times slower to actually see the small details of the crush occurring. To give you a little bit of context, when you stub your toe, you're often aware of the fact that you stubbed your toe before you feel the pain. All right, it takes roughly 1 second for your brain to register the pain of a stubbed toe. This crush occurred in an infinitesimally unimaginable amount of time. We're talking nanoseconds. Why do I call this privileged, you may be wondering? Well, I will tell you. In this country, death is not only tragic, it's often very expensive. Funeral costs, service costs, coffin costs, burial place costs, all of it costs an incredible amount of money. Next to weddings, the funeral industry is one of the biggest, price gouging scams anywhere. Here's a personal example. When my grandmother died and we had to bury her, we got about $30,000 from her life insurance policy, $22,000 of which went to the funeral. But for these privileged, rich children of the deep, well, they got turned into a fine, watery paste and weren't even aware that it happened. The most their loved ones will be saddled with is the cost of a memorial service. Now let me say something I should have said earlier. I'm not trying to suggest that we should be celebrating the death of these people. All right? It's a tragedy, a very avoidable tragedy, but a tragedy nonetheless. But if I'm being honest, at the same time, I don't really feel too bad for them. You know? They were trying to find some new edgy vacation that they could one-up their friends at the next dinner party with. Oh, you went to space? Well, I saw the wreck of the Titanic. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This is Darwinism at its finest. So yeah, I'm not going to celebrate their deaths, but I'm not going to shed any tears over it either. At the same time, I really hope the CEO of OceanGate gets raked over the coals for this. I sincerely do. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got to go count my quarters to make sure I have enough to do laundry this week. Have a good one.